In this video, we're going to go directly into the Linux file system and how everything is structured from the root directory. We'll go into listing a few of those directories and what they stand for, and then we'll go through the commands of copying directories, files, renaming them, and deleting them as well. So by the end of this, you'll be comfortable in traversing a Linux terminal and be able to work within a Linux environment. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so just like the previous videos, I have an MD file for you linked below if you want to use it and follow along with the commands that we're going to be doing, and then just information that we'll be reviewing through this video. So let's go ahead and go into our system. Okay. Everything in Linux can be represented as a file, and you can see here that it all lives within the root directory. So if you go and do an ls / for root, you can see those files and directories that live within that. So I will walk through a few of the ones that are the most common within your day-to-day work, and we'll get started with home. So if we do a list home, you could see that it gives you a directory for your user. Now, this is your home directory for that particular user. So if you do a list / home / oprez san, it gives you everything that lives within your user's home directory. So that's home. One of the most important directories to know within the root structure is the etc directory. The reason why is because when anything gets installed, your configurations files land within this directory. And it's important to know because within your real work environment, this is what you're going to be configuring and debugging and switching around to make sure it works as intended. So one quick thing that you can know from here is if you do this cat, which concatenates and outputs the file information, you can see the OS release of what you're currently running, and it's a quick note to see what distribution you have on the system that you're currently in. So etc, it's very important to know. Let's go into the next one, which is list the var, right? Var is, as it says here, it's your logs, your cache, and any information that's moving over time. So like databases or mail spools, any information like that is gonna land in this directory. So for instance, when a system breaks and you want your log files going into that directory, I'm gonna list from var log. You can see your log files within your system, and you can debug and troubleshoot within this directory here. Moving on to the temp directory, this holds your temporary files that will be sustained only within that session. So when your system reboots, they get cleared out. This is important when you're troubleshooting and you have a log file that it's a bunch of logs that you want to send into your temp folder. So if you do an ls / temp, I have a few here. Once I reboot the system, these will be cleared out and deleted. It's also when you want to download a big, let's say, archive file from whatever, your database, you can output the file here, and then once your system reboots, it'll clear it out and you will no longer have it taking up space in your system. Okay, so proc stands for processes, and this gives you the processes that are running within your system or have ran within your system. So if you do a list / proc, you can see these numbers. These numbers represent a process that's running on your system. So another command that you can run is top, and it shows you exactly the processes that are running and with the process ID or PID that you see right here, PID. And you see that the PID that you see here, the process ID, stand for the numbers that you saw within that directory. So if you do an ls / proc, you can see the numbers that are mapped to the process within that command top. Let's see here. 51 should be in here somewhere. See, 51. So that's the pros. /dev stands for devices, and you could see your devices within your system. You could also do an ls block and see the devices. That's another command that you can use. We will go later into that, but for now, know that your devices live within here if you need to look into that. Bin stands for binaries, and that's where your binaries live and your commands that execute live within. So if you see bin, you can see a lot of the commands that you're going to be running are built within here. So if you see like ls, what we've been doing, if I can find it here, there you go, ls is right there. Your shell looks for this particular command within here if it's stated, like which lets you know where this command lives, because in some instances you might not have access to download a new tool like kubectl and use it within the bin directory. You may have to do it on the home directory itself, depending on the permissions that you have in the system that you're within. So the last one that I want to review here is user, and this is where your user programs and as well as bin live. So if you do user, you can see sbin here, and then a lot of your programs that you will be running, or source or temp files that you can create within this user directory. And that basically runs through a good amount of directories that live within your root system and that you should know of when working with a Linux operating system. Before going into the commands, I want to give a quick pointer on absolute path and relative path. The absolute path always points to what your home path is. So if you do a cd, it takes you to your home path, and then let's see here. This is our home path, right? When you do an absolute path, this is what it's referencing from. So as we traverse the terminal, I will show you examples of when using the absolute path is more beneficial. And then your relative path is your path that lives within the directory that you're currently in. So let's say I go to documents and then I do an ls. There's nothing in there right now, but any commands that I run, I will do them within this current relative directory. So if you do a pwd, this is the relative path that I'm currently in. And it's a concept that you should know when executing commands. And okay, now that we understand the relative path and absolute path, we can start getting into moving through the terminal. And to do that, you use cd, which stands for change directory. So you can do a cd, you can use it alone, and it'll take you to your home directory. So if you do a pwd, I'm in my home. And let's say I do an ls and go into desktop, right? You can autocomplete with tab. So when you press tab, it autocompletes, and now I'm in desktop. There's nothing there, but if I do a cd, it takes me back to that home directory, right? Now you could also do a cd dot, which will take you one directory. So if you do it, and now we're back to the directory above desktop, right? As well as cd dot is your current directory, doesn't move you anywhere. But when you use the dot for the later commands, you could see that it creates it within that same directory. Then let's do this. So another one that I want to point out is the cd with the dash. This takes you to your previous directory. So if you're switching between directories, let's say in let's go to cd etc, right? And now I want to go back to my home directory. You can do it at multiple ways because it's the home directory, but let's say you just want to go back to it, it'll take you like that. A better example of this is probably doing it desktop, and then let's cd into etc. Now cd dash will take me back to desktop. That's a better example instead of the home directory, because home directory you could do multiple ways. So those are a few ways to traverse with cd. Okay, now that you can move through directories, let's start to create some ourselves and create files as well. So the command to create directories is mkdir. So mkdir, make a directory, exactly what we're trying to do. So let's list where we're at, and let's do this within our desktop, right? So let's change directories into our desktop. Now that we're in our desktop, we can make dir, and let's call it first dir, right? Okay, and if we list, you see that the first dir is there. Now, if I want to create a directory with subdirectories within them, let's say I want first dir, second dir, third dir, you can create it with the flag -p, meaning it's going to create the parent folders for each. So for instance, if you do it now, make dir first dir, and then now let's do second dir, and then third dir, it's not going to create it because it doesn't know that this exists or that this exists. So in order to make this actually create the directories, you can do a -p, and now the command executed, and you can do a tree, and you can see the first directory, the second directory, and the third directory. And now all those got created with the -p flag. Okay, now that we have the directories created, let's make a file, and the command to do that is touch. So my file, right? And if I do it here, this created it within my relative directory because I didn't specify anywhere else to create it to. So if you see list, my file is there. So if I want to create it, for instance, let's say in the third directory, we can do a touch, and then first directory to list the first directory, and then if you do second tab, third tab, and then write my file 2 and do a tree, you could see that the file got created on the third directory as opposed to the relative directory that was in. So now we have 2 files that have been created, right? Okay, now that we have a couple files created, we can go ahead and write content to it. We can use Vim, and in a later video I will explain what Vim is and how to use it. But for now, we're just going to go back to what we know, which is the echo. And you should know that from the previous video. And let's put, hi, this is a file. And we're going to input it to my file. Now if we do a cat my file, you should see the hi, this is a file, right? Inside my file. And you have information within that. So let's say you want to copy this file, and for instance, it's a configuration file that you're trying to change, and you want to copy this to save it as a backup, right? So let's list it, and cat my file. We know this is our file. Now let's do a cp for copy, right? That's the command to copy. And we're gonna copy my file, which is first, and then we're gonna name it my file backup, right? Now if we list it, we see that the file got copied. Now let's say I want to copy the file from the third directory right here, my file 2, into my current directory. We can do a cp and start. You can do first dir, second tab, third tab, then my file tab, and then you can name it my file, right? My file 2 backup. And there it is, my file 2 backup. You could also copy directories the same way, and let's say copy firster and seconder and thirder. and if I use the dot as specified earlier with the absolute path and relative path, now it's going to create it within the desktop, the dir, right? And I wanted to do this to show you that in order to be able to copy full directories with the contents inside of those directories, you have to use the recursive flag. So you would do the same command but with -r, meaning it recursively is going to copy everything within these directories. Now if we do it, it completes it, and now you have your third directory on your desktop. Now let's say I want to move my file to the third directory here, right? In order to do that, just like all the other commands, they derive from the word itself. So move is mv. Let's move my file into third directory. Now if I list it, it has moved, and if I do a tree, you can see that the third directory has my file in there, right? Now let's say you want to rename, use that same command, move mv. So mv my file, let's use the backup, and let's rename it my file backup 2. Now essentially what it's doing, it's moving it within the same directory, but it's just replacing the name of that file. So it's exactly what it is, renaming it, but it's moving it. So if you see there, my file backup is no longer there, and it used to be there, and it's now named my file backup 2, my file backup 2, and it's the same file, just renamed to that. So that's how you move and you rename files. One thing that I did want to point out is that when moving a file into a directory that has that file name, the file that you're moving to that directory will replace any of the contents from the file that currently lives in the directory. So for instance, let's say this first dir, second dir, third dir, my file 2, right? Or actually, let's do this. Let's do touch new file, right? And then echo 1 new file, right? And now cat new file. Okay, and it shows the number 1, right? And now let's say we have new file here, and let's create new file, touch and third new file, name it the same, and then let's do an echo to new file. Let's put 2 in there, and let's do third new file, echo 2. So now if we do a cat third new file, it's 2. So if I haven't lost you already, we have one file here, new file, name the same with the number 1. Let's say we have information 1 and information 2. If I've moved this new file directly into the third dir with that exact name, it's going to replace the information from new file. And one way to combat that, because you really don't want to do that and end up changing configurations that you never intended to, you could use the -i, and it will prompt you if there's a file that within that directory with the same name. It will prompt you if you want to override it, and then you can make the decision to do so or not. So let's say yes, let's do it. And now if we do a cat third directory and then new file, we see the 1 as opposed to the 2. And using that -i helps to know if a file lives within that directory, especially when you're going into configuration files that can break something in prod. So knowing this command and these flags are very helpful. All right, now that we created, we moved, let's now remove some of these. So we have a couple files. Let's say we want to remove my file backup. We can do a rm exactly from the word remove rm my file dash backup. And there you go. It removed the file, right? Right here, my file backup 2, removed it. If you tried to do this with the directory, let's say dir, it doesn't allow you to remove it. The reason why is because you have to use the -r flag in order to recursively delete every single file. You also could use remove dir and put dir, but this only removes it if the directory is empty, as it's saying here. So if we make dir my dir, right, you see my dir, and if you remove dir my dir, it removed it. Having the rm dir kind of gives you a safety, knowing that, okay, so for instance, make dir my dir, right, and then let's touch my dir and make a hidden folder, hidden file. Now if I want to remove dir, it won't let you because the directory is not empty. And now in order to remove it, we do rm-r my dir, and it'll remove it. There you go. And that's how you remove directories and files as well. One side note to removing files that you might see in memes or forums is the removal of your root system -rf. This obviously will break your system. It removes everything, and you will have to reinitiate Linux within. There's now guardrails for this. As you see, I did it, and it asks for extra flag in order to actually do this, and it lets you know you're gonna basically break your system. So it's a thing that comes up when running remove. Someone tells you to do it, you know, that's what it is. Now, one last thing that I want to show you is the find command. The find command helps you do exactly that. Find files within your system that you're looking for. So let's say, let's go here and let's go into our first. Let's do a touch first, second, third, and then let's make my secret file, right? Now let's say we want to find this. We can do a find and do from our current directory, right? The dot, that's what it signifies. And then we can do name. And if we do secret alone, it's going to return nothing. The reason for that is because it's specifically looking for something named secret, and that's it. Now, if we want to make it a little bit more open, we give it an asterisk before and after, and now it looks for anything with characters after that and before that, but include secret. So if you see here, it gave us exactly where it lives: first, second, third, and my secret file is there. Now with find, you can also look for directories. So for instance, var, and we can do a -type directory -name, and we'll just go with log. It'll give you all the directories with log, and you see here it gives you the ones that you have access to and the ones that you as well don't. So find is very useful, and I recommend you practicing and using this as much as you possibly can, because it will come in handy when debugging and troubleshooting within the system. So, all right, that was a lot, but now you understand the Linux file system and how everything expands from the root. You should know the main directories and what lives inside them. And now you are able to copy, create, rename files, directories, and really traverse the Linux terminal. So in the next video, I'll be moving into package management and how to install, update, and remove software within Fedora using DNF. That's a skill that actually lets you put tools on the servers, and it's something that you will constantly do on the job. So go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.